Thank you. I don't know if you could hear me. Should I start over? Okay, I was projecting. That's good. Okay. Well, now we know each other a little bit, but we're more acquainted. So, a sense of place and fun American, historical anecdotes and whimsy, details to continuously delight guests throughout their stay at the Fairmont. So, speaking of sense of place, let's talk about where we are. We are nestled perfectly between two major universities in Georgetown and Foggy Bottom, DuPont Circle, which is a growing millennial area, and all the classic DC monuments of downtown Washington, D.C. Zooming in a little more on where our building is, these green rays show you the views from the outside of the building, and the red across the street is our competition, the Park Hyatt. So we really want to activate that street corner. First, these are your major entrances on M Street and 24th, and the public spaces we're dealing with are on the first floor, with the remaining 9 floors being the guest areas, guest spaces. The rendered portion of this plan was our scope of work, covering about 12,080 square feet, and it includes a lobby and a solution space that we were free to do whatever we want with. So in this scenario, we have the Green Dragon Tavern, named for the Green Dragon Tavern in Boston, where much of the Revolutionary War was likely planned. So a fun little history, the Green Dragon DC. By day, this would function as a coffee bar, with it transitioning to more of a cocktail bar by night, working nicely in tandem with the hotel's existing restaurant. This is the primary entrance for guests under the porte cochere, and then to the right, logically placed near the entrance and the luggage and the elevators, is a standing reception to provide that more gracious check-in experience. Directly across from that, we have the concierge, which is seated to allow a more intimate conversation to get acclimated with DC and what your vacation or business trip is going to entail. Then there are several seating clusters of various sizes throughout the lobby, and 2 designated kind of work zones. I mean, everywhere could be a work zone, but these are tables, and then this circular lobby that'll provide our focal point we'll talk about later. In the Green Tavern, you have a focal point of this bar that transitions from the coffee shop by day, and then these sliding doors happen, and it's suddenly a cocktail bar by night. And something to note here is the placement of doors, which is really to integrate that street corner. You could enter from the eastern side down at the bottom of the screen and form a line for morning coffee if you're grabbing coffee at the coffee bar. And then to avoid bottlenecking, circulation can immediately flow out the doors next to that. So this could be a good place for college students to come study, or for business power lunches to get started before you head into that restaurant. So that's the Green Tavern. We will now walk through a guest experience. So you've pulled in up to the porte cochere and walk in. This is your wow factor, the circular library that can be seen from outside, so it becomes maybe a legacy for the Fairmont. People are like, oh, you're staying at the hotel with the circular library in the center. And it also exemplifies the DC values of knowledge and history. To the right, you'll then go to check in, or just go up to your room if you've already checked in. And here's the reception desk, which has a nice juxtaposition of this traditional mural and a more modern standing reception and a lower one for ADA accessibility. And then you'll move around to the elevator, grab your luggage maybe, because the luggage station is right there, and so we're going up to the elevator where you will see your guest rooms. And here you immediately have that sense of place within the hotel. You know you're on the 9th floor, and it's really a blend of the modern trends to have this oversized wayfinding and a more traditional serifed font that kind of blends that. So here are the room types we have available. There are 4 typical options, as well as 5 presidential suites that are the blue, strategically located with the best views at the corner. We'll start with the typical rooms, and this is the kind of scheme we're going for, a very traditional, iconic DC, vintage, warm, American feeling. And then they all follow a similar layout, have the same features, so we'll talk about these 4, the double queen standard, double queen suite, and king and king standard and suite. All of the doors have been designed so that, lined up so that they could be across from each other and have alcoves down the hallway, so you can get more of a sense, like break up those long hallways. And then from the entrance, you have the grooming, which is located near the interior, so that the living spaces can have the best views. The bar is located near the entrance so that staff can easily fill it with ice, but it's also near the living areas for guests to use. Each room has a closet featuring a safe that is big enough to store a laptop. That's that rectangle you see there. And then a work surface. And perhaps the most unique feature of the Fairmont typical rooms is, since all of the beds are oriented towards the windows, how are you going to watch TV? So this, by day or whenever you feel like it, you can be focusing on the views with this built in, and then at the guest's will, this could transform into a private movie theater. There's also a seating in each of the suites, and like I said, all of the beds are oriented towards the views, enhancing that sense of place. Then we move into the presidential suites. So to enhance that sense of place and the continued whimsy that a guest would experience, each presidential suite is named for a presidential pet. Probably a little known DC fact, and that advertisement wouldn't be necessarily on the website. It'd be like a card that you get when you check in that tells you the story of that pet. So each time you come back and you're in a different room, you'll get a different story of a presidential pet. And they also each have a color focus reflecting the colored rooms in the White House. So the first is the Charlie, named after President John F. Kennedy's pet terrier, and this is what the menus would look like that people would get, and this has a gold focus. Each of the presidential suites features like more public type areas with living and a wet bar and a half bath, and then a coat closet, and then the more private areas that feature a walk-in closet and double vanity sink, like all of the amenities you expect when you're going to a luxury hotel. Then to appeal to the more millennial guest, we have the ES suite, named after President Teddy Roosevelt's daughter Alice's pet snake, Emily Spinach. So this would have a more subtle snake accent. It's a green color focus, as you can see. This is an ad from Gucci from last summer, kind of a little edgier of a room. And it has the same features except a larger wet bar with seating to allow for maybe more entertaining, if that's what this guest might be interested in. Then we have the Nelson, which is still a little bit edgier. We're still a little bit millennial. And this is named after President or General George Washington's, one of his horses in the Revolutionary War, the Nelson. And the thing that's interesting about this room is the integration of the master bath and suite, which is kind of a trend that we saw in some of our precedent studies, having a tub in the bedroom. It's a little edgy, but there's still a shower that's private and tucked away. And this has a maroon scheme. And then the Jack, President Lincoln was the first president to make Thanksgiving a national holiday, and whenever his family was gifted a turkey for their table, his son Tad decided to make it part of the family instead of the meal. So this is the Jack with the auburn scheme. And this is kind of a look at what all of the restroom schemes would look like throughout the hotel, with the black and white marble and the golds, very luxurious. And then finally, the Him and Her suite is named after President Lyndon B. Johnson's twin beagles that were named him and her. And so this has a blue scheme. And again, you may have noticed throughout this space, we've been really trying to orient towards views. So all of the living spaces are oriented towards the views, if possible. So you've checked into your room, you go down the hotel, and you're going to come around, probably go to the concierge to see what's next, or to what you want to do next. So there are seating clusters along the way, and then you arrive at the seated concierge. Again, it's seated, so you have a more intimate conversation. You don't feel rushed to really get a feel for where you are and what you're going to do next. And again, the sort of juxtaposition of modern and traditional with the murals and then the lighting fixtures. From the concierge, you'll make your way around, depending on the time of day, you might want to grab a coffee or a cocktail, over to the Green Dragon Tavern, which is just right around the corner. And this is how it would function by day. You see people lined up for coffee, and then these doors in the back will slide, and it becomes a bar by night, working nicely with the restaurant. You can grab a drink before you go in or whatever. So this is the Green Dragon, and this is the Fairmont. Thank you for coming.